Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael.
And I'm Molly.
And today we are going into everything Bravo, Bravo, effing Bravo with the guy who knows probably one of the only people that I would say knows more potentially about Bravo than myself. It is Gibson Johns, the host of Gabbing with Gib. Gibson, how are you?
I'm great. Love to spend my evening with you guys talking Bravo. It'll be fun.
Thank you so much for coming on. So, before we delve into all of the hot topics here, let's just get to know you a little bit. So, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to this point of hosting Gabbing with Gib.
Yeah, to make a long story short, I had a media job for like 8 or 9 years. Worked at the same company, and the first part of that was like really just like entertainment news, and I was doing a lot of writing, and I interviewed a lot of celebrities, like just regular celebrities, and it was like so cool. And I was like, I was like 25, like talking to like really famous people, and it was fun. But I realized like I started to do like a couple Bravo people here and there, and like some reality stars, and I realized that like. And a lot of the time when you do these interviews with celebrities, they're like 10 minutes or they're like 8 minutes or whatever,
Mhm.
and you get nothing from them. It's like cool to be able to talk to them, and I'll never say no to that kind of opportunity. But I realized with the reality stars, I was like, why are these interviews so much better? And it's like, oh, because this is their livelihood, is to share their lives and to like really divulge things. And they use the press also as like a chess piece basically in their persona. So I leaned into that back then, and I had already watched a lot of Bravo, and I was already sort of like live tweeting the shows a lot. But that sort of, I think, in tandem, like leaning in that capacity professionally, and then also leaning in to live tweeting and stuff, especially like kind of leading into the pandemic in those years, it sort of converged at some point, and I started hosting a show for them for Yahoo, and I did that for like 3 years, 4 years, and then I started gabbing with Gib on the side because I realized I didn't own that show and I didn't own anything I was doing for them. So then I got laid off at the end of last year, and it became my main gig. And but it's been great, and I love having, and I love like the fact that I can just do whatever I want with it. When you're at a corporate media company, you're like very much like, this is how we do it, and whatever. So yeah, that's how I got here. Basically, there's more to it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Were there any shows in particular that originally got you into reality TV?
So the first reality shows that I watched Survivor the first season when it was on. I was like 7 or 8, but I watched it, and like we watched it with another family when we were on summer vacation. Like had like we like all wrote down like who we thought was gonna win. Like we were voting. So Survivor and Big Brother, like they sort of started around the same time. And I have an older brother who's 3 years older than me, and we have a lot of the same interests. So like he would sort of know what to watch, and he would put it on for us. So it was Survivor, Big Brother, American Idol, huge.
Mhm.
I like loved American Idol so much. And then early Bravo was not far after that, like Queer Eye and Project Runway and all those. Like I've been watching since then. So
Awesome.
we've been in deep for a long time. And also the MTV shows were big for me. We loved Laguna Beach and The Hills, Super Sweet
Mhm.
16, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, so basically everything.
Yeah,
Everything.
basically. Except for like I've never really been, other than like I love Trading Spaces and While You Were Out back in the day on TLC, but like currently, like the past 15 years on TLC is like not my vibe at all.
Not
I
the
can't.
90-day
I'm
universe,
not.
yeah.
I'm not a 90-day boy. Um, I'm not even like a big Netflix reality show kind of person. Like I love Love Is Blind, but that's it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like I don't do the other ones. I don't. Who has the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite shows right now, you would say, from Bravo or otherwise?
Oh my god, what am I even? Okay, you guys, literally, I'm gonna keep talking as I do this, but I have a list on my phone where I keep track of everything that I watch at any given time because I can't keep track. Like literally, it's like a note in my phone.
Wow.
Oh my
Um,
god. I love it.
I mean, right now, I think the only reality shows I'm watching are on Bravo and
Mm.
Survivor. I
Mhm.
just finished Golden Bachelorette, which was good, but I feel like it kind of petered out. But I don't watch regular Bachelor anymore because I don't believe it's just like kind of a show to like get people famous. Whereas like the Golden Bachelor and Bachelorette, I feel like I cry during a lot of the episodes. It's like it feels so real and it's like actually really. I think it's what early Bachelor sort of was.
Yeah.
Um, I also love Great British Bake Off. That's the show that I look forward to watching every weekend because it's very much like my cleanser. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Well, for Bravo, it seems like as a whole right now, it's in a really interesting place with a lot of the big shakeups happening on various shows. So overall, what would you say is the current status of Bravo right now?
I think Bravo earlier this year, I understood why earlier this year people were like really kind of questioning, oh, it's like Housewives dead and all these kind of like, you know, they're over the hill and all this kind of stuff, which I understand, but I also think that I've never understood. Like I'm very online when it comes to these shows, obviously, but I've never really understood like I feel like a lot of the people who talk like that want it to be done. They like want it to be past its prime and what have you. And like I don't I don't I love this stuff. So it's like why would I want it to be like I always want to think that like there's going to be another golden age down the road and I want to think that like they're going to figure it out and I really think that like I think the Roni reboot is kind of a failed experiment. I don't know. I think there's maybe a way to bring it back. But I think it's like very specific way to bring it back. And we can talk about that later if we want. But I think that the past couple of years have definitely, there have been certain uneasy things for Bravo. But I actually think that with Potomac and OC and maybe with Atlanta coming up, I think they've figured out a way to really reinvigorate the franchises, which is to have the really right ratio of like, OG, bring somebody really interesting and compelling back, like Tamra or Heather, or like Portia and Phaedra, or like I guess on Potomac you're not really bringing anybody back because there aren't that many people to bring back. But
Yeah.
then you inject really exciting new people, and you have some like I'm calling like mid run additions, like a Wendy or a Mia, or like I mean, Dorit and Erica are sort of mid run people, but they're like really stalwarts of the franchise. Atlanta, I guess that's like Drew, but like I think that they figured out that the way to reinvigorate a show is to have the right ratio, and it's not to wipe the slate clean. It's not to like I don't know do some other sort of stunt casting. I think it's really about maintaining the connection to like the early days of the shows, but also injecting new energy. And so I think that Bravo's figured that out. And so I think that like I don't know how they fix Roni. I really don't. But on the other ones, I think it like Beverly Hills is about to be a great season. Potomac's having a great season. OC has had an amazing season. Salt Lake's having an amazing season. That's half the franchises that are in really good shape. So
Yeah, I think like the key of what you said that maybe people have missed in the past is those mid-run
yeah,
people because I think like you have to have someone to kind of bridge the gap between the OGs who like a lot of them have friendships from before even the show started and it's hard and then to just bring it I have a few of those and then try to bring in half people who like kind of have some friendships maybe with them and try to make that seem as authentic as a friendship that's been 10, 20 years. I think it's impossible to do. So you kind of have to have those people to bridge the gap there.
100%. I think you're so right. And I think eventually, like in a couple of years, like you could probably basically act like those people are OGs. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if Kyle does want to finally hang it up, which I don't really want her to do, but it feels like she's sort of like teetering on the edge a little bit sometimes.
Hmm.
If she really wants to eventually do that, if Teresa, who knows where she's going to
Yeah.
be,
Who knows?
but like if some of these like last remaining really kind of OGs or quasi OGs do end up leaving the fray, you have Erica and Dorit, you have Shannon, you have like these people who like aren't OGs, but they feel like they are.
Yeah. Shannon
Yeah,
for a couple of years was the longest standing,
yeah,
weirdly enough,
exactly,
before Tamara and
exactly.
Heather came back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it feels like it's still a connection to that first
Yeah.
era.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, now that we've kind of already gotten there, let's focus in on some of the individual shows here. So, starting with OC, its season is ending this week officially after this part three of the reunion. So, I feel like the big question mark for next season is whether Alexis can or will
Hmm.
return. What are your thoughts on that? What changes do you think that the show should or will make before season 19 starts filming?
like other than the Alexis question, I think you keep the cast the exact same
Yeah,
personally.
I agree.
Like that's like I think there's enough interesting stuff happening there. I think you could literally center a season around Heather and Katie. You know what I mean? And like that,
Hmm.
it's kind of this reunion. I didn't realize one thing I liked about this season of OC is that the web of friendships and dynamics was really complex, and it wasn't one side versus another side, which I don't love that dynamic. But the reunion sort of making it seem like it kind of is that way a little more than I realized, I guess, kind of.
Yeah.
So that could be the dynamic next season. I think it could be kind of interesting. Alexis, hmm, that is the that is the question, isn't it? I mean,
Hmm.
I kind of we haven't seen the third part, but I wanted her to come into this reunion with like slightly different energy, and she hasn't. And so to me, that just tells me that she doesn't really get it, and she's not going to get it. You know, like
Yeah.
I also know that like I've heard that she was calling production during the season and like was mad about how John was coming off and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I don't know if they love her either, you know, and like that's not going to do her any favors. So I think that like she was a bomb they threw in there, and she could have handled this in a way that got her more guaranteed more seasons, but she hasn't handled it that way. I wouldn't be upset if she was a one and done return,
Yeah.
but I also personally wouldn't be upset if she came back. But she would have to change up like targeting Shannon. She would have to bring a different dynamic or like just focus her energies elsewhere. Because I don't care about John and Alexis, but I don't know.
Yeah, those comments still from that engagement post were hilarious.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I still think about that sometimes. Like, wow, everyone just hates her. Um,
Also, what
but
happened?
Yeah.
Wasn't she gonna like go live on Instagram after every episode or something and like correct the narrative? And that never happened. That
Yeah,
means
I don't think that
production
ever happened.
that means PR or production got to her and was like, "You're not doing this."
yeah,
Yeah, because I think like I think what you said is right. Because I remember there was an Instagram comment that she made a few weeks back where it was like talking about like I mean this kind of got brought up on the reunion, but about like this being my career, my
Yeah,
job, all this stuff, and
she's a
I feel
TV
like production
star.
hates that. Yeah. Like they probably hate when people really call it a job. Only doing this because I was paid to do it or hang out with these people
Right.
because I'm paid for that. And I feel like Alexis was really going in that direction a lot with her
Yeah,
comments. And
totally.
I feel like that's probably not going over well behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And again, like if she had like I said that Tamra had to come into this reunion like offering some sort of tail between her legs apology, and I think that she's like sometimes she's like sort of done that. She's been quiet, I think, generally
Hmm.
on this reunion. But Alexis, no. Alexis
Yeah,
hasn't done
it kind
that.
of reminds me, like, I mean, I know you said you watch Love Is Blind, and it kind of reminds me of how Hannah on the reunion on Love Is Blind, like,
Ah,
I thought she was really going to come into it being like more apologetic, more like kind of making fun of herself, and she really kind of doubled, tripled down on everything. I feel like Alexa's just doing the same thing. It's never a great idea.
totally. And it's like even if you believe that, even if that's your true feelings, like you
Yeah,
have the ones who are really good know that they can't. You can double down on certain things, but you have to offer up some sort of apology. You have to resolve the conflict, and Alexis is showing not only no self awareness, but just no willingness to resolve anything. And like I
yeah,
think Shannon's way of resolving it is like wiping her hands of her, but Alexis like can't help. She's like a dog with a bone, and
yeah.
mm, it's getting
Let the
repetitive
mouse
for
go.
me. Yeah,
Um,
exactly, exactly.
yes. Well, now moving into Salt Lake City, we just saw the mid-season trailer drop last week. So overall, what are your thoughts on that, and also as a season of as a whole so far?
I'm loving the season. I think um, there's a tall task following up last year. They've done a great job. I think they're all essential to the show. I definitely have questions about like the first half of the season for Meredith and whether like they just cut down a ton of her airtime for some reason, because like she's had this bat mitzvah storyline that like we've checked in on like twice, and it's like been in passing, and she clearly probably filmed a lot more about that, and I maybe there just wasn't room for every. I mean, it's a big cast. That's the only person that I'm sort of questioning, but I'm not to the point where again I've seen a lot of comments online where it's like Meredith's a friend of like this is her last season, but like as we saw in the first trailer and now the mid-season trailer, there's like at least like 3 to 4 meals where she's like activated, sort of like some of those meals in Palm Springs last year about Angie, like the husband, and that was that's the kind of shit that I love to see from Meredith, and I'm really looking forward to like watching her get activated again and come alive. And it seems like it's mostly directed towards Brittany for like apparently recording them, which like
Yeah, that's wild.
I'm so curious why they think that. You know, like we have no idea. They showed that shot of her like in her hotel room, like scrolling through the pictures on her phone. Like I don't know. I'm curious why they think that about Brittany. I'm guessing it turns out not to be true, but I'm looking forward to that from Meredith. And then like again, like they're hyping up this last dinner in Mexico on this Mexico trip, and they're saying it rivals last year, and the mid-season trailer makes it look like it might. You know,
Yeah.
like they're holding Angie back. Bronwyn's in tears. We have a you know a self-righteous speech from Heather talking about how we all want to dig up stuff on each other. And listen, they're all doing they're doing the work. They're all doing the work.
That cast deserves an Emmy after Emmy after Emmy. I mean, they know, they understand the assignment, and they get an A+ every time. It's
I agree with you. I agree with you. I do think that like I was randomly listening to Vicky's podcast because Jennifer Pedranti was on it,
oh
and
yeah.
And Vicky was like, I hate what Housewives has become. Like they're all digging stuff up on each other. Like this is not what the show is about that I made. And you know, classic her.
God.
But I do
Cue
think
the
that like
playback.
but I do think that like the Salt Lake, the way that they do it is kind of trickling down to the other franchises in a little bit, in some ways, you know what I mean? Because that is how they operate. They dig up shit on each other, and it makes for great TV.
Yeah.
But I think that the other franchises almost feel like they have to keep up with that, which like I wish they didn't feel like that, because I don't think that every franchise, as we know, is like different. So yeah, I think there's something to that, but I think it's great.
Yeah, I think in that way, they kind of remind me of OG Roni, where it's like they can just go at each other to
Yes.
the brink, and
It's a
then
good
the
comparison.
next season they just forgive, and the alliances have completely shifted. And it's like kind of the anti-Jersey, where Jersey like stays stagnant for so long, and the divide just grows wider and wider and wider, whereas Salt Lake is just so changes every season.
Totally. And like I would say that about Potomac too. And then
Yeah.
but I do think at a certain point, I mean, they're at season 5. Potomac, they lost an OG going into 9, so they lasted 8 years with the 4.
Yeah.
I'm so curious when the moment's going to happen where like one of them sort of falls behind, or one of them becomes a little bit less essential.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
My guess
who it would be.
I know. My guess is that it would be like Meredith or Whitney.
Yeah.
But I hope, I mean, I love all 4 of them, honestly, but that's sort of where I could see it, because I feel like Lisa and Heather are really good at keeping up with everything, and Whitney is too, but I think she operates a little bit differently. And so if the show moves in a certain direction, I don't know. That's what I have my eye on. I'm like curious about how that, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. We saw you were at the Van Leeuwen event today with some of the cast. So how was that? And did you get a chance to talk with some of them?
Yeah. So it was Mary, Bronwyn, and Angie. I had never met any of them in person. I interviewed Angie on my over Zoom on my podcast. But yeah, it was like this show is camp, and like they lean into the campiness of it. So like the fact that it was 11 a.m., I was at a Midtown ice cream shop in New York, and in walks these 3 women like dressed to the nines to scoop ice cream. They have this like new flavor called SLC Scoop, and yeah, it was just like camp, and they were all just like leading into it. Mary was serving ice cream in her leather gloves and sunglasses, never took the sunglasses off the entire time. They're all so sweet though. Like Bronwyn is, so I chatted with Bronwyn for 5 minutes, and then Angie and Mary for 5 minutes. They were together. And I think the audio is good enough to use on my podcast later this week, but like
yay.
TBD. But Bronwyn's really good at media. Like she's really good at press. Like she's just so savvy, and she's so smart, and she's just shady enough, I think, you know? And when we were like right before we started our interview, Todd walked in, And so he was there, and she was like, "Oh,
Ooh.
he's here for Mary and Angie. Like they're his favorites." And one I did ask her. There's that clip that came out, I think, of this week's episode where it's sort of post trip, like they're discussing it between Todd and Bronwyn, and
Oh yeah, I saw that.
and it just, to me, it has felt like he didn't really know what the show was, or like what he was really signing up for. And I sort of asked her about that. I was like, I told her, like, that's sort of the feeling that I get. Like, did he know what this was going to be? And she was like, she sort of talked around it, but she also gave an interesting answer, which was like, it's more about him looking after her. And I think that kind of plays into, like, people have observed like a paternal sort of element of their relationship, and I think that that's only natural because of their age gap. But
Mhm.
yeah, she's really, I just noticed how good she was at interviews, like some people are good and some people aren't, and she's very good. And then
Yeah.
Mary, I was standing next to her, and she sort of looked over and she was like, "Do I know you from somewhere?" And I was like, "Well, we've never met before, Mary, but you used to only follow like 30 people on Twitter, and I was one of them." And she was like, "You know what? That's what it is. And I only follow people that I trust." And I was like, "You know what? I love that." And I chatted with her, and it was, I mean, I love Angie and Mary's friendship, so it was fun to hear them talk about it and sort of gush about one
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, I've always
Yeah.
wondered, like, how genuine that is on Mary's side. Like, I feel like it's probably genuine on Angie's side, but
Yeah,
I feel
well,
like it's
Mary
only
was the one that was like, she's my she's like a sister to me
Wow.
because Mary's older sister stopped talking to her when she started doing the show. So
Oh,
I think that
interesting.
she does have that sort of whole, in terms of like somebody who fills that dynamic for
Yeah,
her. And if
wow.
Angie's going to be that person, it
That's
sounds like she,
wild.
yeah,
Considering
I
where they
know.
started.
I
Who was
know.
Angie?
I know. I know.
Wild.
But yeah, it was fun. It was a fun event.
Yeah, oh,
That's
that's
awesome.
awesome. Well, so New York, going into New York, that they
Mhm.
had a very controversial episode last week where it was revealed at the very end that the entire episode we just watched was an elaborate prank by Aaron and Rebecca.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that whole situation? And I mean, we talked about the reboot in general kind of already, but
Yeah. So as I said earlier, like, I'm somebody who really wants these shows to be great, and I root for them. And I wanted to give this, and I've given this reboot like such a chance, and I've like
Mhm.
found the silver linings and the bright spots and celebrated them for that. But I feel like this was an inflection point for the show, especially like when you look at the reaction to it. Even people like myself who have tried to really like, oh, it just pissed me off, to be honest. And
Yeah.
like, it, I feel like as Housewives viewers, we've gotten a lot smarter and a lot more savvy, and we know how this all works. And it kind of felt a little bit like thinking we were dumb, And like, I've kind of gotten that vibe since. Remember Rebecca Minkoff did the interview before the season, and it was like,
Yes.
she was like, "Oh, like I told Jenna I wanted to have a fake fight with her or something like that."
Yeah.
And I've gotten that feeling from her the whole time, that she just doesn't get it. She doesn't know what the show is really about. She wants all the benefits without really playing the game, and she kind of thinks it's kind of superfluous. And it's like, as somebody who makes a living off of this and takes it very seriously, and like, it's just kind of insulting. And
Yeah.
now I'm just feeling that from the whole show a little bit. And I don't know. I think that episode, if I think it hurt a lot of their chances of really being, they were already on thin ice, and I think that kind of broke through in a bad way for
Yeah.
them.
Because I think, like, honestly, the worst part of it to me was the Bryn of it all, because the fact that she just went along with it,
Mm,
allegedly not knowing that it was a prank, and then just said, like, oh, yeah, well, I talked to all these other people, and they said that it's true, blah, blah, blah. And it just showed me, like, well, now I don't believe anything you've ever said. Like,
mm.
because that just shows that you didn't know it was a prank and you still went along with it. Like, that to me was even
Yeah,
worse.
which like proved their point, which is like they were trying to
Yeah.
prove that Bryn was like such a gossip and just like will repeat anything. I don't know. It's just like, what are we doing? Like we
Yeah.
spent 45 minutes, like,
I
I don't
know.
know. And like, I'm gonna keep watching, like, but I'm not gonna enjoy. I'm glad that Beverly Hills is on Tuesdays now, because
Yeah.
it gives us something really great to watch. And
Right. Exactly.
I'll watch Roni the next morning. But
I think the only thing I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to now is seeing how they react to it at the reunion because I feel like Andy didn't like it either. And he kind of said that on Watch What Happens Live. So I feel like I'm interested to see how he handles that conversation and how everybody kind of reacts to it because I think that could be interesting.
Can I ask you what you thought? Because I agree. Andy definitely was not into the prank thing. But and either was Jeff Lewis. But then Jeff later in that Watch What Happens Live episode was like, "But Roni's my favorite right now." And I'm like,
Yeah, I
"You're
don't know
full
how.
of shit. There's no way. There's no way, right?"
No.
I just feel like some people are like still like pretending that it's like still the like they're pretending
Yeah.
it is something that it's not. You know?
Yeah. I think like for so long it was kind of cool to hate it and so then people were like no let's give it a chance like
Right.
we
And I
don't
was one
know
of
these
those
women
people. Yeah.
and now I feel like it's kind of turned around where it's like the people who were giving it a chance are now coming around to being like yeah this just isn't working.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So, yeah. Well, we did get the mid-season trailer yesterday. I mean, do you think there's any chance that the Uber Bryn fight that's teased could potentially turn this season around? Because it does seem like that hopefully is real.
I actually liked the trailer. Like I thought it was like
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, like this is pretty explosive. But it just feels like we're leaning on this like one, maybe two episode arc of
Yeah.
Bryn and Uba like coming to blows basically. And I don't think it's enough to save the season. It's like also just not invested enough in whatever's going on between them to like care that much. Like
Yeah.
I'm curious what it sounds like Bryn like makes some sort of accusation about Uba that sort of ignites it, but I'm curious what that is. But other than
Mhm.
that, I'm just sort of like, okay, yeah, I'll watch. I just it took us 14 episodes to get here, you
Right.
know? And like what happened in those 14 episodes? Like I that's the whole thing. They don't have any like actual stuff happening. It's all like she repeated this that I texted her and blah 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 blah, blah and it's a bad game of telephone. That's the whole season's a bad game of telephone. And that's not
Yeah.
enough to keep us interested.
Yeah, for sure. Well, keeping on Tuesday nights, Beverly Hills is premiering in just about an hour after we're recording this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see like an early screener of it,
I
but
just watched it again. I just watched it again earlier
ooh,
today.
that's a good sign. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Well, what are
Yes.
you looking forward to most this season?
I think that Dorit and Kyle's friendship, they're friends because of the show, but they're also falling out sort of because of the show.
Mhm.
And I love when the show plays into it like kind of overtly. Like a lot of like a lot of their issues with one another are based upon like what Kyle said about Dorit on Amazon Live, what Dorit did on at BravoCon, what it's all
Mhm.
like tertiary shows and that are part of this ecosystem. And I love that. Like that's kind of stuff that I live for. And they're Dorit's like being really forthcoming. She's like saying a lot about her stuff with PK. She's saying a lot about her issues with Kyle and Kyle vice versa. And it's just new energy from her. I just find it compelling. And I think it's going to be a lot of that this season. Um, but it's going to be good, I think. And
Yeah.
the one thing I hope is that enough other dynamics and relationships are sort of fleshed out, and this isn't all we're doing. But I
Right.
have faith that they're going to have more of that.
Yeah, well, something else that is happening in the world of Beverly Hills is the Teddy Mellencamp of it all. It came out over the weekend that she allegedly had an affair with her horse trainer, Simon
Mm-hmm.
Schroeder. What is your take on all that and her divorce and alleged affair and allegedly
So I think that
Edwin having an affair?
yeah, it sounds like they were both cheating on each other,
Yeah,
allegedly, but it sounds like they both were at different times. Maybe like maybe he used to be cheating and then she was later on.
what
I
it
don't
sounds
know.
like.
Um, I always thought it was telling that she announced her divorce on a Saturday afternoon. And I used to work in entertainment news, and the whole thing is that when celebrities don't want very much coverage of something they have to announce, they do it on Friday afternoons when there's
Mm-hmm.
less people scrolling, there's less people working. It's going to get less, like it's going to have less follow up stories, sort of at least immediately. So when you don't want to make a splash about something, you hide it on a Friday or a weekend. A Saturday afternoon is ultra that. Um, so I found that very telling, and I think now we know why.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's the most, as people have said, it's kind of like the most interested I've been in her life ever, and she's not on the show. So shucks, but
Yeah.
uh yeah, it's juicy. Like I'm plugged in. I'm plugged in.
Yeah. No, it's certainly getting me to listen to Two Teas and Pod and
Oh,
seeing
it's
where it's
see,
gonna
I'm
go.
not that in deep, but so can you please report back when
I
she says
will.
anything of interest?
I
Okay,
will.
great.
So far, nothing, but
Okay.
well, now going into some of the non-Housewives Bravo shows that have also been in the news lately. Southern Charm season 10 is premiering in just a couple weeks here, and JT has already announced that he's quitting the show, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure we've ever seen that before a show even premieres. Do you have any guesses as to what could have happened to cause that sudden exit?
I don't really know. I don't know. I am interviewing Vanita tomorrow,
Ooh,
and I'm extra excited about that because I have this hunch that has something to do with like we see this part in the trailer. It's where he like expresses interest in her romantically, and she
yeah.
sort of expresses it back. I have some sort of hunch that has really and it's related to that. I don't know how, but that's
Hmm.
just sort of my feeling. I don't know how that unfurls, but they were done filming sort of the principal photography of the season, but they were obviously doing confessionals still. And I'm sort of like, what causes you to quit at that point, right? And
Yeah.
I don't think anything really. I feel like nothing happened, quote unquote, like recently, but I kind of feel like he was picking up on where the direction of the questioning was going and sort of saw the writing on the wall of like, oh, this is going to be my storyline and I'm going to look
Yeah.
really bad. And it's probably stuff that maybe was
Mhm.
talked about when he in other people's scenes or something like that. Like maybe it's something that he doesn't know people are talking about or whatever. I'm trying to piece it together, but
Yeah.
that's sort of where I'm headed right now in terms of my
Interesting.
speculation. Because you only pull out if you're and he liked doing the show. He liked filming that guy. You know what I mean? Like so
Yeah.
he's only going to pull out if he's like worried about his image, in my opinion. Um,
Mhm.
but he knows what he was involved in during filming, and he was still doing confessionals. So I think it's like what other people were saying about him. That's my
And it yeah.
completely unfounded guess.
And it seems like he is gonna be the villain based on, like, what Madison's been
Oh, she hates him.
posting and,
Yeah.
like yeah, it does seem like there's a turn for him, and, so that doesn't
Yeah.
shock me. That wouldn't
No.
surprise me if that was right.
Yeah. And now he has a new girlfriend too, so it kind of feels
Right.
like Wins of Vanita was like probably pretty empty. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't know. That's
Yeah.
I'm piecing it together.
We'll see.
We'll see if Vanita says anything to me, and I'll air that before
Yeah,
the
I
season.
will be
So
listening.
Yes. Well, there's also been a lot of speculation on what the holdup might be for filming Vanderpump Rules season 12, and the cast, what that would look like. So, do you think that the show could work with everyone from the past last seasons, or do we need any changes there for the future seasons?
I don't usually listen to the Dumois podcast, but
Ooh, I've never listened to that.
my brother listens to it, and he tipped me off that she had somebody on. I forget what fan it was, like somebody who runs a fan page basically, and they're used to be like involved in a lot of production, I think, in Hollywood, and so they have like connections. And she was saying that she heard that it's been pushed back. She said everyone signed on. This is according to somebody on the Dumois podcast, so take it with a grain of salt.
Yes, the
But
most
she says that
reliable thing I could think of,
exactly,
yeah.
but occasionally right. So she said that it's been pushed back a couple times, but that everybody's signed on. It's a money thing that's
Mhm.
being, and that currently the plan is, and again, grain of salt, is to film in January for 3 weeks, and that's going to be the last season.
3 weeks?
Wow.
That's
That's what
the
this
amount of
person
time
said.
Phaedra was on the season of Atlanta.
I know. So it would be like a really truncated schedule, and I'm guessing it would be like a really like intense, vigorous schedule, honestly, of filming.
Wow.
But that's what this person claims. It's like it's too far gone to like whatever, but they want to give them sort of some sort of send off. Um, that's what I've
Interesting.
and
I
and
almost
and, and it's sorry, it's a money thing. Like that the cast wants more money, but also like they've all been on the show for so long that like it's basically too expensive for Bravo to like do 4 months of filming or whatever it is with all these like
yeah.
because if you do for 3 weeks, probably less episodes too. You have to pay them less. You get to pay them less. That's what this person is saying.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting. I almost at that point wonder if they should just kind of do like an ultimate girls trip type thing. Just take them on a trip for 2 weeks.
that's a good idea. Totally. Like a girls' trip with a reunion, and then call it a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, exactly. Get the
Yeah,
best of everything. Just
totally.
highlights.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a question with these shows, right? It's like, because after I listened to it, I was talking to my brother, and we were talking about how, like, I do think a lot of the time we want sort of what's going on to be some sort of juicy explanation, but I do think a lot of the time it's literally just money. I think it's
Mhm.
literally just like either in a contract negotiations or it being really expensive to produce these shows, especially on the shows where people have been on for a very long time. And it
Yeah.
adds, like, you can pay, you can probably pay Charlie Burnett, like 8 of her for how much you're paying Ariana at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is, yeah, I don't know.
Wow. Well, we'll have to see what happens there, but that's some juicy gossip. Um,
Yeah.
Go listen to the Dumois podcast, not
yeah.
sponsored.
Yeah.
Well, also, we see a lot of Jax and Brittany in the news from the Valley talking about their divorce and what led to that. So, are you looking forward to seeing on the next season of the Valley, like what went down there, or how do you think that's going to play out?
Definitely looking forward to season 2 of the Valley. Like, that's, but isn't it, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of forget it exists sometimes in a weird
Mhm.
way. Like, it's such a great show and I loved the first season, but like it's not ingrained in my mind to like think of it, because in my mind it's like Housewives, and then we have Summer House, Southern Charm, and Vanderpump Rules, and that's
Yeah.
like what it is.
I
But
think because it
like,
was airing
no,
with Vanderpump Rules, I kind of just put them together.
totally, and like they're part of the same universe,
Yeah.
obviously. But I just, it's so funny because I forget it exists, but and I'm like, oh my god, yeah, that we're getting the Valley next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I really don't like Jax Taylor. I think he's like a really just bad energy. I think he's like such a liar about like whenever he says he's changed, you just don't believe him. Um, but I'm here for the Britney redemption, and I'm here for her taking it to him. Did you guys? I listened to both of them on the Alex Baskin Bravo podcast last week,
I listened to
and it's
the
just,
parts that are on YouTube. Yeah.
yeah, it's like you don't learn that much from it, but
Yeah.
it is interesting hearing both their perspectives on the same situation.
Mhm.
And I'm inclined to believe Brittany's. Um, I have heard that Janet is still the villain this season, that
Oh,
she's still going to
interesting.
be in that role.
Wow.
And actually, she was on my podcast, and she made a comment on my podcast that was like, it really got all of them really. It was about Zach, and it got picked up everywhere. And I think that that's going to be a storyline on the season.
Ooh, how cool
Because
is that you get to be a storyline?
listen, I don't love being part of the narrative, to be honest, but this is kind
Yeah,
of like a bucket
you're the
list thing,
only
I think.
blogger that hasn't at this
I'm not
point.
right. Yeah, I'm not in it for that reason, I will say.
Yeah.
But what she said was pretty wild. I don't think she would make it up. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think Zach versus Janet, maybe.
Well,
Wow.
yeah, that makes sense
Hmm.
based on where we left off.
Hmm.
Well, I think that pretty much covers all the Bravo news that I can think of at the moment. But looking ahead, where do you see Bravo a year from today? Like, what do you hope or think that the network will be at?
Well, we'll be having another BravoCon in Vegas in a year.
Yes, very true. Right about now, I
One
guess.
thing that I hope that they, in terms of the programming, I still like, I love having so many shows to watch, but like it's a little too much right now. So I do think that like they'd be wise to spread it out a little bit.
Yeah.
I just think having a summer where there's like one good show on is like when there's 5 on in the winter. Um,
Mhm.
I don't like. I feel like it's all because they want to have stuff at BravoCon to like premiere and talk about and like unveil. Uh, I'm really curious if Real Housewives of London ends up airing on Bravo, because it's a Hey You thing, which is not available in the US. And I've never really watched the international franchises, because Dubai was the only official, obviously, international franchise on Bravo. I hope that it is, because I think that like London is such, it's a city obviously with such potential in that capacity, and like Ladies of London was such a good show. So I hope that that could be basically our replacement for Dubai. So that's a big hope of mine. Um, I think we will get answers on Vanderpump Rules and like if it's indeed some sort of like final season for this group of people. I think there's a way to like do a next gen Vanderpump Rules.
I think they're filming one. Are they not?
Oh, are they? I don't know. I don't know. I can't keep up
Yeah,
with all of that. I know they've
I
like
think they
auditioned
are.
people or whatever, but
Because I think Peter actually came out and said
oh,
that
of course,
they were
Peter.
filming
Okay,
something at
got
SUR.
it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
And
just like a
it could,
pilot and it might
yeah, it
not
could
be
be like
full
a test,
content.
yeah,
Yeah,
which I would love. Like, I think that like I always want them to have a plan. That's all. That's the only thing. It's like with Roni, they had a plan. It didn't work out, but they didn't really have the plan set in stone before they made the move. And I think they
yeah.
definitely learned from that mistake. What else do I want next year? I would love to see more. I mean, I would love to see more Roni OG action somewhere. I don't think it's going to
hmm
be on the show, but those women are locked and loaded and ready to go.
I've always
Mm.
had a yearly girls trip with them. Like, the
Yeah,
first one, like, it was
totally.
fine. It wasn't amazing, but like I felt like
No,
it
but it
was nice
scratched
to
the
see
itch.
them.
It scratched the itch.
Yeah, yeah,
Totally.
for sure.
I don't have like super high hopes for the Love Hotel show, but I'll watch it, of course.
I just am
Um,
looking to see all the interactions between Shannon and
oh my god, literally, they should play
yeah.
that up. Yeah, you know what? I'm really looking forward to Atlanta actually, because all signs point to them not cutting Kenya out, and they're gonna show what happened.
I hope so.
That's what I think is gonna happen, and I think that's what I wanted them to do because I'm like, we have to get people back in the Atlanta fold, and if you have this big moment that happened, really scandalous, really controversial, it's kind of fourth wall breaking, play it up. Like amp it up, let people like get people excited to tune in to see what happened to Kenya more in Atlanta. And then what I hope, because she just did her interview with Tamron Hall where she's like, I want to come back and share my side. Bring her back for the
Ooh,
reunion
yeah.
or like a one-on-one with Andy or something where she can really break the fourth wall to talk about it, because you can do that more in the reunion and in a Watch What Happens Live setting. So, and then if she really shows a lot of accountability and contrition for what happened, bring her back for next season after that. And then it's Portia, Kenya, Phaedra, Cynthia, all on the same show again. Like
hmm
that's impossible to be bad. Like there's no way that's a
Right.
bad show. you
Right.
know, you're
And I
at
think that
least
Kenya's been
laughing.
smart. Like Kenya hasn't trashed Bravo. She hasn't like said
Totally.
anything that would get them to just completely cut her out. So I think that that's very possible.
And she said on Tamron Hall that Andy's like been really
Yeah.
supportive and reached out to her a lot. So I agree. She's handling it. I don't think she handled it initially well with like those random Instagram lives and stuff, but I think that she's realized like this won't end well if she kind of goes full force
Full
on it.
Nini. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap up here. So, is there anything you want to plug and where our followers can follow you on social media?
Yeah, just my podcast, Gabbing with Gib. Usually twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, wherever you're listening to this show. Um, yeah, and I have extra episodes this week because I just couldn't help myself. And you'll get the Salt Lake. I'll talk about the Salt Lake City event. But yeah, just go subscribe to my show and check it out. I have Vanita on coming up. I'm trying to get more interviews going, but there's a lot going on Bravo right now. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a pleasure
Thanks for
having you
having me.
on, chatting everything Bravo related. And if you're listening to us and you're new to us, we also have our podcast every week where we talk about lots of different reality shows, not just Bravo related. So follow along for us as well on anywhere you get your podcast at Let's Chat Reality. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well. So thanks so much for listening, everyone. And thanks again, Gibson, for joining.
Bye, everyone.